I feel like it's a very heightened next level opinion to think that this game is very good. So, like, I gotta get up in there. How do we put this?
The Thinking Weebs video game.
It's the Thinking Weebs video. A goal!
A go?
Bree, 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 brr, 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 Got some spice on that one.
You gotta add a little bit of spice, because that's how you know you're about to fuck some shit up.
Yeah, we are about to fuck some shit up. I feel like y'all, our dear listeners, are walking into a bit of a longer podcast. If the length already displayed in your podcast timer is any indication, because we got a big boy today.
But this isn't just a lengthy podcast.
There's a lot of depth to this one. It's overall a pretty sizable boy.
Yeah, we got it all. We have got it all. Trust us.
So let's skip this whole first part where we usually try and do like a funny thing, or maybe I don't know, that may be my attempt. I can't tell if you're picking up on my attempt at being funny. You may just think I'm trying to make conversation.
Wait, you try to be funny?
Yeah. Anyway, this is Video Game Podtimism. It's the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. And my name is Chase, and I've got 7 very good games that I want to talk to you about.
And I'm David, and I am not going to be funny at all anymore.
Wow, that's an interesting turn. Is that your 2021 persona?
I mean, it's just you aren't funny during this podcast, so I feel like I now have to bring it. I had now to bring it down to even things out.
Sure.
To kind of get on the same level as you.
Yeah, we're both not going to be funny. I think that's going to make for a really entertaining podcast, I think. Just 2 very dry, humorless conversations. Yeah, I'm hopeful for this one, David.
You're hilarious, Chase, please.
David, have you been playing video games this past week?
I have been. Playing video games.
Would you care to tell me about those? Outline some of those video games?
Mostly The Witcher 3.
Okay. Because you beat Divinity 1. So what else do you have?
Yeah, I got no Divinities anymore. I'm just waiting for Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's what?
Gate with a
Baldur's
T.
Gate? Baldur's Gate. Oh, sure. Gate. Okay, I hear you.
Yeah, you got me.
Okay.
So yeah, waiting for that one to come out whenever it comes out. So Witcher has been my fantasy kick for the last week. So I'm in Skellige, and I'm trying to shore up my defenses at the castle.
Yeah.
So
I think I know what part you're
things
at.
are going to get interesting soon, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still enjoying Witching?
Yeah, I feel like this is a very strange game because I only seem to be able to enjoy it more.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. It didn't hook me immediately, and it sounds like it's got a similar trajectory for you of like, the combat's kind of wonky at first, and you're not really sure like what's happening in the story, and then like over time it starts showing what it can do. Yeah, and I feel like it does. Like to me, it didn't start getting good until like probably like 5 hours into the game when you're like in the bog,
Crookback Bog.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. That was so wild.
That one was wild, and that whole arc I thought was really good, and was the first time that I was like, okay, there was a lot of things that happened just now that I was not expecting, and that were pretty fun.
Yeah, pretty fun, and just every once in a while, it just does something really, like, just disturbing and kind of fucked up. And you're like, oh my god, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, pour one out for poor Skjall. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do. Poor Skjall, man.
That was a memorable
section. Yeah.
What
a weird, like, I feel like they never come out and say it, but like the subtext is right there. You understand what's going on.
I mean, Siri pretty much asked him, like, is that your first kiss? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. What a tragic story, though.
I know.
Tries to help this girl who he likes, and then loses his honor, and then has to go and regain it by fighting a monster, and then gets promptly killed, and then gets brought back from the dead by black magic, and is just screaming in pain the whole time that he's being just interrogated by this mean witch lady.
Which he is. He is being interrogated by this witch lady.
He's being interrogated by her. He's just, it was brutal. It was brutal. But brutal in like a good a good entertaining way. That sounds messed up.
It's oddly like tongue in cheek. I feel like sometimes it's like, I don't know, it never like really sinks into like the depression of the game. I feel like because Geralt is kind of like not lackadaisical, but he almost seems above a lot of this. Like renders a lot of the story beats. Like, I don't know, they're just not as depressing as I feel like they could be if they played it straight.
Sure. Yeah.
So I kind of appreciate that it's like that because it makes it a lot easier to digest.
Most definitely. Well, but yeah, that's been good.
Yeah.
And still been playing Star Wars Squadrons.
Yep.
Still pretty good. Has some little flaws in it that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not clear what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that does happen.
At least in the story, it gets very confusing. It's kind of like sensory overload, but it still feels good to play.
Yeah.
It still feels good to play. But yeah, that's still been fun. And cool. I think really that's kind of all I've been playing. I've been really engrossed by The Witcher. Also, when those bears attacked at that feast, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Mallory was watching me play that, which is like, what's going on with these bears? Like, what's happening right now? What is this? It even got her interested. I was like, okay, here we go.
It's a sign of a good story.
Backseat gaming. Let's do it.
Sweet. Okay. Are those all the games you're playing?
Yeah, what about you? What are you playing?
3 things. Some of them are similar from last week. Still just kind of jamming on Valhalla. It did a cool thing. There's like a third, I guess maybe fourth, depending on how you're counting it. Like a fourth place that you can go to. I think I probably won't like ruin what it is because it is kind of interesting to discover. They call it something that I thought it was going to be Finland, but it isn't. It very much isn't. But they do this thing that I really appreciate that Breath of the Wild did this too, where you'll go to a new place, maybe some kind of like isolated island or some isolated area, and they essentially strip you of a lot of the abilities and equipment that you have and kind of start you from zero and will pull you through the like most of the experience of playing the game in like a half an hour to an hour experience. So like in the example I'm thinking of is in Breath of the Wild, you go to that one island and it's like, hey, if you want to get, I can't remember what it is, the shrine or something on that island.
Yeah.
You have to like discard all of your items and your equipment and you start and like, you're like, okay, well, fuck, there's enemies over there. I got to go like, get like a stick and beat them up. And then you do that and you can take like their bad swords and then go fight. And then eventually you're working your way up to fighting that like ogre or whatever within the span of like a half an hour. And it like really well encapsulates how good the game was because it's like, hey, we're going to take everything away from you, make you start from zero and just experience how fun that is to go from like zero to hero very quickly. And that's like most of what the game is just like experiencing this world and going through and getting better and better. And Assassin's Creed did that again, where it's like you go to this island and they're like, hey, you have to take all of your equipment before you go there. And so you start with like literally just your assassin's blade. And it's like, okay, there's a dude out there you got to go find, like, go get him. And so it's it was fun to see them sort of like nodding to that game design idea that Breath of the Wild did.
Cool.
What else? The writing is getting worse as time goes on.
Oh no.
There's like conflicts that are happening that I'm like, I don't really buy it. There's like this problem with your main character and one of the like supporting cast that like comes to a head and like it came out of nowhere. Like just one day the dude was mad and then it like ends in this like battle to the death. And I'm just like, what, like, why are these people doing this? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure if I'm like maybe playing the game in an order that would lead it to be this way, but regardless, it just seems like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like that. I think the main conflict of the whole game is with you and your brother in this game, Sigurd. And like that conflict starts to heat up in ways that I'm like, it seems pretty out of character for these people to be doing these things.
Yeah. Didn't seem believable.
Yeah. It just feels like they made your brother incredibly likable in the beginning, or at least you're supposed to like him. And then just started like making him do shit where you're like, why? Like this doesn't square with my understanding of this person. And maybe that'll change over time. I still haven't beaten it, but
it just feels tacked on. It's just like, okay, now he's gonna be your enemy.
Your bad guy.
Sorry.
It's just,
he was cool before.
Yeah. So it does seem a little weird. A little bit of that Red Dead issue where you're like, your main character is definitely identifying that things are breaking bad. And it's like, why are we still doing the things that we're doing? Like in Red Dead 2, where it's like Arthur Morgan knows Dutch is bad. He has been given so much information as to why Dutch is bad. He could so easily just leave and like maybe take Lenny with him or something like that.
What a champ.
The champ. And it's like, why are you still here? It doesn't do that totally, because I think your main character has more motivation to like kind of keep their clan whole and like, you know, do what they sought out to do. But there are a couple of missions where it's like, we could just stop doing this if we wanted to. So sort of weird, but I'm still enjoying it. I'm also much further into Bloodborne. That's like mostly what I've been playing. A game that's like 5 years old at this point.
You're a blood boy again.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. This game is so enjoyable. The design of the world is such a treat to get through. Just beat Rom, the spider in this game, which is it's an incredible boss battle. You get to like essentially this like body of water, and you have to jump from a second story building into the water, and it doesn't give you very much indication about that, but there's like a light under there, and you hit the water, fall down, and it's just like this huge plane of nothingness and like this ethereal like god spider that you have to fight, and it's so fucking crazy.
That's cool.
It's so cool. I love that game. I'm doing a build that's like kind of gimmicky and like cheesy almost.
Sure.
You like get a specific weapon and you level your like, I think it's like arcane level stat, and there's a couple of weapons where like that damage scales in a really weird way, such that if you have a super high number, it's just like one-shotting bosses. And so
all right,
it's really fun, and it's like kind of the opposite of what I played last time. And I think I'm doing this because I played Demon Souls and Dark Souls, and Bloodborne last time is just like the big boy with the sword, so I wanted to try a little bit of a different build.
Big boy with the sword.
Yeah, I do this all the time. These FromSoft games, I pick the largest sword I can possibly find and use that one, because I love the sense of like you have to hit R2 and then like 5 minutes later it hits the guy.
You like that?
It forces, I either succeed very well or I fail miserably. And so like there's it's one or the other, right? Like I rarely squeak by with those weapons. It's like I have to learn the enemy patterns to know like, okay, now is a good time to strike, because that attack is the one that's going to take them a while to wind up after that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like dodging and maneuvering that makes it pretty fun. Versus like if I was just kind of poking, it's like I might be able to get away with getting hit here and there, but with the big boys, it's you gotta know when it's cool to hit.
Gots to know, yeah.
And you usually only need to land like 1 or 2 hits, and so you don't need to do it for very long. Just like if I can just get the opening right. So that back and forth is thrilling. I'm probably like halfway through. I realized I didn't play the DLC for Bloodborne 2, so I'm doing that now. And that's been a joy to have some fresh content to get through.
Is that included with the PlayStation whatever?
No, I just bought it. It was on sale. It was like $5.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. And for something I haven't played, it was a nice addition. So yeah, I'm doing that. It's very fun. I'm sure I'll beat this. It's just a joy.
Where's the DLC for Sekiro?
I know. Was there not any? I feel like there wasn't,
they did a patch of some sort.
Sure.
Like an update that added like a new game plus and some skins or something like that.
Yeah.
But they never did any formal DLC.
Monsters, man. I need more stuff. I need more Sekiro.
I need more monkeys.
I need more monkeys.
There's so many monkeys in that game. It's good.
Yeah, there was.
Good amount of monkeys.
And then the third game that I'm playing is called Morbid, the 7 Accolades.
The indie pick of the week.
That is the indie pick of the week.
Chase is indie pick of the week.
We probably do need a stanger for
There's
that.
There's your new stanger right there.
This game, in very typical fashion, it plays out like Dark Souls. It is this game for Switch that came out, I think, like less than a week ago. It's pretty enjoyable so far. It's like a top-down sort of fighter, kind of plays like Hades or something like that. And it very much wears the FromSoft influence on its sleeve. Like, you know, the lore in the world is very similar in sort of this like abandoned and cursed place that now has these like horrific monsters wandering around that you have to sort of get through.
Sure.
The mechanics are very similar of like, you know, you have some things that you can level and whatnot, and the enemies are pretty tough. You die pretty frequently and then come back. The dodge roll is a big, important part. Got your big old sword swinging thing, so you got to learn the timing of those.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, that like usually games that try to do FromSoft type games usually don't succeed for me. I think because they're going after such a specific formula, it can be hard to nail that and then also do something original. But that said, I feel like this game gets pretty close. Like it gets you, that satisfying sort of like, okay, I figured out the mechanics of this game and I'm doing very well and like moving through the game, and there's like fun bosses to fight through and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty good.
Awesome.
I think it like there's like gratuitous sort of gruesomeness for the sake of gruesomeness.
Gratuitous gruesomeness.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's literally called morbid, right? Like the game is like, there's flesh monsters and stuff like that.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like, I don't know, for whatever reason with FromSoft, it like there are some pretty like horrific things in those games, but rarely do I feel in those games that I'm like, come on, guys. Like I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to the game designers in this game sometimes, where I'm like, that was kind of unnecessary. Did we really need to do it like that? The violence in the game and sort of the like gratuitous like blood and guts sometimes feels more like the game designers and developers expressing themselves rather than the world of the game expressing itself. Where I'm like, okay, guys, like that was a lot, versus like, wow, this world is so fucked up that this is a thing that happens in it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It doesn't like that. That's definitely not something that's on the top of my mind most of the time. Usually I'm just playing the game and it's enjoyable, but that's just something I've noticed as well. But yeah, I think definitely like a successful sort of take on the FromSoft games. And I know that like translating FromSoft into 2D can be kind of a challenge unto itself. But I think they've mostly done it there. So yeah, cool. I'm having a great time with it.
Nice.
This will all bring me though to my Podtimistic thing of the week, David.
Let's hear it.
It is all of our friends in Seattle have recently hopped on to the Among Us train.
Oh, all right.
And so we've been playing it. All of us are playing it on our phones. And so we'll fire it up on all of our phones, get on a Zoom call and play it.
Nice.
It's been incredibly fascinating to like watch a group of people who like aren't typical gamers, right? Like these aren't people who
just the way you said that was really funny.
Gamers.
These aren't typical gamers.
They're not people who have an appreciation for the blades on an Xbox 360. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
So, no, I'm just kidding. It sounds very condescending. It's not what I mean.
They've never modified their consoles.
I mean, they probably haven't. They probably haven't done that.
They've not even had a console. They haven't modified it.
So it's interesting to like watch us play it and sort of appreciate it and like the meta develop around it, just like within our friend group. I'm always very interested in that, especially like when that sort of thing hasn't necessarily penetrated a friend group like that. I had this happen to me when we were playing Smash at my last job at the office, because like people weren't super familiar with Super Smash Brothers. Like maybe they had played it a little bit, but it took kind of a second for the meta around the game to develop, and that sort of development is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, totally.
Where we're not just playing the game, right? Like we're learning each other's habits and learning how one another plays the game.
You're not playing the game, you're playing the person.
Exactly, yeah. So it's I don't know, a fascinating thing to watch happen. Plus, like, I hadn't really played Among Us. I'd played it a little bit here and there, but it's a fun game, man. It's good stuff.
No, I did the same. I played Among Us with my grad school friends the other day.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. Just did it over Zoom. Everyone got on, and yeah, it was a good time.
It is a good time. I feel like the learning curve is the same for people if they have or haven't played video games very much, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's like the most entry level game ever.
Which is great. Like it makes it really fun to be able to be like, the game is explainable within a minute or two. And then the mechanics of like any given task is pretty much just like a WarioWare game where you have to like...
mini game. Easy peasy.
Yeah, it visually tells you pretty much what you have to do.
Yeah.
So, it may take you a second to parse, like, okay, am I trying to turn the dial to red or blue, or like, what's the thing? And then you do it within, 10 seconds. So, yeah, it's enjoyable.
Short, bite-sized sessions.
Definitely.
Sometimes it's like 30 seconds, and that's it.
Yeah, if you're playing with few enough people, you can just get killed immediately. Do you have something fueling your sense of podtimism this week, David?
My podtimistic thing is backseat gaming.
Okay. You're talking about like passenger navigation or somebody just like watching you game?
Both.
Yeah.
So I was playing The Witcher 3, and Mallory wasn't like paying attention to what I was doing. She was just like on the couch as well. Yep. And then those bears attacked, and then she was hooked. And it's just like going through all the dialogue trees with her, and she's just getting into it. She's like, of course she would say that. It's obviously her. What would you think? and like telling me what to do. Like, oh, what do you think was going to happen if you attack that werewolf? Come on, you got to dodge. Just like, God. But it's fun. It's fun to have someone along with the ride and to, just have that little bit of interaction with the outside world while you play a virtual game. So you're not just totally dissociated with a reality.
Yeah. So you're still maintaining one toe in the real world.
Exactly. Which The Witcher can definitely take you out of the real world for a bit there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a
That's true.
Deep game.
I feel like I talked about this a little bit when Em was playing through Paper Mario because I mostly backseat rode that one and how like enjoyable it is. I genuinely find it pretty fun to like watch somebody play a game. There was quite a bit of time when I was younger where I was like, if I'm not playing the game, I'm not being interested in doing this. But I think his games have gotten more complex and more interesting, like visually. It's made the game viewing experience a lot more enjoyable. Obviously, right? Like Twitch is huge. Plenty of people will gladly watch somebody play a video game. And so it's really nice to be able to have that just like between you and somebody who's important to you.
Truly. Feels good.
Great. Do you want to move on to our main thing?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, this podcast started this year, for the most part.
Did it really?
I think our first episode dropped like the very beginning of the year.
Wow. We're a purely pandemic year. We're a purely 2020 year. My God.
I know. It's a little bit of a weird situation that we've gotten ourselves into. But I believe our first episode was talking about the 2019 roundup. Yeah, January 1st was Metal Gear Mandir. Yeah, so we talked about our most okayest games of 2019 in that one. The more that I thought about doing that again, it felt a little bit unpodtimistic. It felt a little bit mean-spirited to talk about the okayest games of 2020.
A little nasty boyish.
It's a little bit nasty boyish, and I think my original hesitation with just doing games of the year was that like literally every fucking gaming podcast has a game of the year.
Yeah.
But I think, now that we're here, the Podtimism has been inside of us the whole time, David. And so I think our in perhaps highlighting our games of the year, the Podtimism will shine through.
I think so. I think so as well.
As such, we've collected 7, an interesting number, our 7 best games of the year.
We sound like such millennial assholes.
I know, yeah.
Why 7? I don't know. It's a list.
So we've collected our 7 best games of 2020. I believe you had mentioned that a few of these are probably previous releases for you, which is totally cool. I tried to keep mine, I think, to the 2020 releases, but what the fuck ever, man.
I just did games I played this year.
Yeah,
which is how I count it personally.
Sure.
So I don't play through as many games as you to be like I played through this many new games this year.
Yeah.
I got a hearty backlog that I like to go back through that I keep tabs of. So yeah, that's the difference there.
Sure. Quick question. I have a handful of honorable mentions, and I also have M's games of the year. So which one do you want to do after we do our 7 or before?
Let's do the honorable mentions afterwards, and let me just yell at Mal to see where her game of the year is.
Sure.
Hey, Mallory, what's your favorite video game you played this year?
So we're going to preface our games of the year with our partners' games of the year. Because their opinions are probably more important than ours, if we're being frank. If we're being honest with ourselves.
Don't degrade yourself like that. We're equals, Chase Albee.
Yeah. Regardless, we're going to put theirs first.
That we were not convinced about the equality there.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
We're just some fucking himbos who decided to make a podcast during quarantine, man. They're accomplished women. I don't know what the fuck we're doing.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We're equals. They are just as qualified to have these opinions as we are.
Yeah, if not, like maybe more though. Okay.
I'm not gonna split hairs with you on this one. If that's how you feel, that's great.
Yeah.
More power.
Sure. So I queried Em yesterday with what her games of the year were. And I was a little shocked at the result, actually. So her third favorite game of the year was, of course, Paper Mario, the Origami King.
Okay, the one that she plowed through?
The one she plowed through.
Great.
She mentioned, and I'm quoting her here, if Paper Mario didn't have all those stupid fucking puzzle fights in it, would have been my game of the year.
Stupid fucking puzzle fights. Okay.
A bit of a harsh criticism.
Yeah. Okay.
Her number 2 was Animal Crossing, and she was quoted in some sort of other context saying, "I played so much of the other one," in reference to Animal Crossing. So enough to say that she liked it, but perhaps not. The name wasn't quite as important.
Sure.
And then the sleeper hit, the shocker, number 1, Luigi's Mansion 3.
Whoa, Dark Horse.
Yeah, she her praise was, I liked walking around and looking for things. It's good.
Solid. You could put that on the game case for the Game of the Year edition. I liked walking around and looking for things.
I mean, it's oddly descriptive of the game as a whole. So it's not
walking around and looking
off.
at things.
Yeah,
That's good. Mm-hmm. I just yelled at Mallory out of my lair what her favorite games were for the year.
Sure. Yeah.
And they were as followed. Divinity Original Sin 2
as the third best game.
As the third best game.
Sure.
Divinity Original Sin 1.
Yep.
Because she liked the story better than the second one. And then Untitled Goose Game was her favorite game of the year.
Yeah.
For, quote, the general assholery of it all.
I get what she's saying there. I get what she's putting down.
Yeah. She says that that's something that she wishes that video games would explore more. That concept. Which I appreciated that. I really appreciated honesty, that commentary. That was good. That was good an analysis right there.
My instinct is that you should just play video games online and you will find that in spades. But I think there's a special little spice that Goose Game brings to it that is something special.
It's the backdrop of the assholery on like quaint British countryside manners.
Yeah, like an almost Winnie the Pooh level of pleasantness.
Yeah, or like Paddington Bear, you know?
Yeah.
Like very British, very, very quaint.
Prim and proper and enjoyable.
And then you're just this asshole goose.
Yeah, coming to fuck shit up.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay, well, why don't we fucking get into this so we can go to bed on time, because we got a lot to get through. Cool. So let's start at the bottom with our 7th best game of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Before we get in there, do you want to predict how many of our games will be crossovers with each other's list?
Maybe 2.
I think maybe 2. I bet 1. My guess is 1.
1? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. What's your number 7, David?
My number 7 is Cuphead.
Cuphead. Okay, sure.
Because I've been playing a lot of that one this year.
Yeah.
Very fun, very difficult, punishing game. Mm-hmm. Does not let up at all. Mm-hmm. Doesn't care about your feelings. Only cares about facts. It's the Ben Shapiro of video games, truly.
Jesus. That's not a good endorsement. That doesn't feel good at all.
No, it's a really great platformer, great visual style. There's no other game that looks like it. Very tight controls, but a lot of variability in how to play the game too, with the different power-ups and the different guns you can get, and special charms you can get. Mm-hmm. And you know, it hits that great sweet spot of difficulty and fairness. It's like, yeah, you lost there, but you can see why you lost pretty clearly. It lets you know what to do better at. Yeah, which is always great, right? Because otherwise, if you lose and you don't know why you lost, that's when you get the gamer rage. Yeah, that's when you look like a fool in front of your significant other.
Yeah, I have that one.
No, yeah. So Cuphead is my number 7 for the year.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
I haven't beaten it yet, so it got negative points for that. So I can't say that it was my favorite or higher up on the list, because still, like I said, haven't beaten it, but it's getting there.
Yeah. It's a good one. I definitely bounced off of Cuphead after a little bit of time playing it. I wonder if I just need to keep going with it. I do that with FromSoft games too, where I'll get a level into it and be like, oh God. And I'm just so close to being really in the fun part of it. Mm-hmm. Did this with Hollow Knight too. I bounced off Hollow Knight for a year. Yeah. And then came back when you were playing, and I was like, oh my God, this game is the best fucking game.
It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah, so I may have to go get another shot.
It's good in the same way. Imagine if it was Hollow Knight, but just all boss levels.
Right, yeah.
Right, which is punishing, but in such a good way when you win.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, what's your number 7?
My number 7. It's The Last of Us 2, David.
Number 7. Okay.
Yeah. So I have such complicated feelings about this video game, David. Mm-hmm. We talked about this at length in that episode, and so if you want to like kind of dig deeper into that stuff, go check that one out. Mm-hmm. I think we put out in like June or whenever that actually happened.
Yeah.
And so like just to kind of reiterate, on one hand, it is like possibly one of the most mechanically polished video games I have ever played. Every interaction is animated with like so much care. The moment to moment gameplay is like satisfying and fun. The exploration is really good. Like every environment you're in is so well realized and so believable. And like overall just like such a polished and well made like video game. And I think as we talked about it though, it's so hard to play through the story.
Yeah.
And especially this year, like it was so challenging. And like the game really wants you to feel bad, and it does that really well.
It sure does.
And so like I was thinking about this one versus the last one, like the first Last of Us. The first Last of Us. And so like in the first game, the game is like incredibly bleak and like hits you with these like pretty rough story beats. Like things are happening and it's like, wow, that's really rough. Or like, ooh, that was brutal. But like throughout the game, I mostly understood every action the characters were taking, right? And, it eventually forces you to empathize with like this really rough decision Joel has to make at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. And as much as like, in the moment, I'm sort of like, wow, that's really rough, dude. I'm also like, I kind of get it, right? Like I kind of get why he's doing this.
Yeah.
And it puts you in this kind of weird, uncomfortable position where you can empathize with this like pretty wild act.
Yeah.
But the point they're making, at least to me in that situation, is like that there's this depth of love between this like kind of pseudo dad and his pseudo daughter, right? Mm-hmm. It'll make him go pretty far. And like, that's kind of an oddly warm story, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's just like expressing how much you love this person.
Yeah.
And it's just like wrapped in this like very sad context. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like the story is sort of flipped, right? Like Ellie is now the person who's expressing this appreciation for Joel and this love for Joel, but the way she's doing it is through like violent and bloody rage and revenge. Mm-hmm. And it's just not really the same thing, right? Like protection is a very easy thing to empathize with, but like violent revenge is not as easy to empathize with. That's something you go to do. And so like, I think the whole time it was just like, I wanted Ellie to leave very badly. I was like, come on, girl. Like, that this isn't it, right? Like, that it's not going to get you what you need. And like, even when she, eventually goes back to her like home and like has the opportunity to sort of stay, she doesn't. And so as a character, I was just like, man, fuck, like it's hard for me to empathize with this person. And so I think that was sort of the core of why it was hard for me to enjoy that game. Mm-hmm. That said, it's like I said, it's still such a polished video game. Everything is firing on all cylinders. Like the writing is incredible. The characters and like the character voice acting is so good, and just all of that stuff. And like I said, what I'm criticizing here isn't the video game. The video game is fucking great. It's just that because it's trying to tell a really complicated and complex story, I'm forced to sort of grapple with what they're saying, and what they're saying I think is kind of a bummer. And so, I think it just lands on that spot for that reason. If it like, it's hard for me to say what would put it higher, but I think just because it's like, it came out in this year when like, do I really need to feel bad?
Yeah.
Like, in this way. So yeah, it's still such a well polished game. I just think the take that they have is pretty hard to digest. Okay, well, what's your number 6, David?
My number 6 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Nice. I was hoping for some representation of this one on this list.
No, it's in there for me. That was a fun one.
Oh yeah.
It's a blast of nostalgia,
sure,
which was nice in this cold, dark year.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. Go listen to the episode about how nostalgia feels good right now.
We sure did. But beyond that, it's just still a tightly controlled video game with a good gameplay loop of just getting the highest score possible, doing the gnarliest thing you can do, and just setting you loose on these fun playgrounds of skating that you can just let your imagination go wild on. You know, that's the fun part of the game. Is just go and just try and do the craziest thing you can think of. And if you can't do it at first, just keep on trying until you do it, and then go from there. And then all the little quality of life upgrades, like it looks beautiful. Right,
Yeah.
They really did a good job of staying faithful to the original levels while also still making
manuals.
adding manuals, making it current, feel new. Right,
it's got batitude now.
Batitude?
What? Like attitude, but it's bad.
It's got batitude.
That's what I want out of my video games is batitude.
Did it not already have batitude to begin with?
It had like 90s batitude, but now we got fresh 2020 batitude, David.
We got 20s batitude.
It's the roaring 20s,
Sounds
and I need Tony Hawk on a goddamn board, baby.
Weird. And the Create a Skater is good. I haven't tried any of the online, and I haven't tried any of the Create a Park stuff.
Yeah.
But everything's there that I want from a Tony Hawk game that I haven't had in a long, long time.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It just kind of rekindled my enjoyment of skateboarding in general. Like I just started watching skateboarding videos on YouTube. I'm just like,
fuck yeah.
These guys are crazy. Like these guys are legitimately insane athletes who do just bonkers stuff and just get up so easily after just eating shit every single time. I would not be able to do that. These are some bouncy dudes. If I felt like that, I would be in the hospital. Like every time.
That's an all-day sort of fall.
Yeah, that is a for the next 6 months I am recovering sort of fall usually. But no, it's just a great game. It's just pure fun. You know, there's no context, there's no pretense, there's no story. It's just go have a good time playing a game, which is a breath of fresh air in this year.
Absolutely. This was on my honorable mentions because I just didn't have a place for it, and it was sort of a painful omission. Mm-hmm. But it's enjoyable. I love this game a lot. I think it definitely hits those nostalgia buttons all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's good stuff. All right, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Wasteland 3, David.
The isometrics.
The isometrics,
There you go, okay. Is that co-op? Can I play that one with Mallory?
I don't know. I would have to look that up, because I played it just by my lonesome on my own. So this game was a surprise to me. While I didn't really know it was coming out, I didn't have any context on the series. I haven't played like Wasteland 1 or 2. And so I was sort of shocked to hear it getting praise, or not shocked, but like I just hadn't heard of it before.
Yeah.
And people were saying like, oh, it's really good. It's really enjoyable. And for the most part, I bounce off of most of the CRPGs that I play. Mm-hmm. I get my ass kicked in Divinity, so I must be doing something wrong. But regardless, I've restarted that game probably 3 times on separate consoles, just being like, this time for sure.
Divinity?
And then,
Really?
yeah. And just get kicked. I have no idea what my problem is, but
okay.
I get my butt kicked in that game real easily. Pillars of Eternity, lost my save, didn't want to start over.
Oh, God. Worst
thing.
And
even like Disco Elysium a little bit. Like there are people who I really respect in games who play that game and they're like, this is like the best shit ever. And I just sort of like, after a certain point, like, stopped playing it as enthusiastically. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't sort of expecting to appreciate this game as much as I did, but it's really fun. What people describe about CRPGs, I was finally able to sort of appreciate about this game. Being able to walk into a situation and have a ton of different approaches to them. Mm-hmm. Anytime you can like walk up to a very deadly enemy and be like, hey, you should leave. And then it says social skill 9 out of 10 or whatever it is. And then you convince them to leave and give you their fucking gun or whatever. It's just like, yes, dude, yes, that is so satisfying.
The pacifist in you is satisfied.
It's the skills other than fighting that is usually very satisfying for me, because that's rarely represented in video games.
True.
And so that sort of stuff is always just such a thrill. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think I had some sort of complaints about it with like the writing or the very like gamer approach about how to write their characters. But I think
that's right.
Overall, it was a surprise and a joy. So I really liked it. Plus I beat it. I wasn't expecting to beat it. I just kept playing it until I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm done.
Long games.
It's over. It actually wasn't too bad, which I think is something that also adds to it a little bit, that I was able to sort of like get through the main arc of the game before it was like, what am I even doing out here?
Sure. Yeah.
Like you're pretty much introduced to like what the main conflict is going to be very early in the game. So it's satisfying in that way.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. Number 5. What's your number 5, David?
My number 5 is The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay. Yeah. Here we are.
Yeah. Here we are again. Look at us.
Tell me.
Look at us.
Hey, look at us.
Number 5, number 7. Look at us.
Tell me about what you like about this game.
Very similar to what you said. It's just technically immaculate, right?
Yeah.
The actual gameplay of brutally murdering people who I hate for murdering my surrogate father is quite good. Quite good.
Yeah.
Most other things about it, though, I wouldn't say are necessarily fun.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right? It's very much in my mind, it is a great game.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily a fun game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I compare it in my mind, if we're thinking about, like, movies, to, like, There Will Be Blood or Apocalypse Now.
I thought of, like, Requiem from a Dream, too, where it's just, like, that was a painful
like,
movie to watch.
That was a great piece of work, right? I definitely felt something. I see what they are going for. But did I enjoy, was it fun to do that? No, it wasn't. It wasn't fun.
It's kind of hard, yeah.
But that's kind of the greatness of it, right? But also its biggest flaw, because they lean into that so hard with this game. So I think when I was playing it, I was like totally into it. But like looking back on it, the farther out I get from it, I was just like, I don't think I'm ever going to play that game again.
No,
like why would I go back in there and play that game? It's just so difficult to play through, because the story is so important to me with games that it's hard for me to separate the gameplay from the story, and just enjoy the level design, right?
Yeah, it's impossible, especially with that game, right? Like the story is up front. It is a lot of what that game is doing.
Yeah, it's the main draw, I would say personally, is the story in those games, and that's how they sell it. But you know, great, it's still great. But it's I consider fun and enjoyment in these lists, and I wouldn't say I enjoy it as much as these other games on my list.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Demon Souls, David.
Demon Souls, wow, okay.
I know this. I was a little bit hesitant to put it on there.
Recency bias, but I understand.
It's pretty recent, but I had a really I don't know. It's been a really cool experience playing this game. So the game design is 11 years old at this point.
Yeah,
Demon Souls came out on PlayStation 3. Like it's a very very old game.
Yeah,
and like I know that Blue Point Games had they put a phenomenal coat of paint on this game. Like it just looks absolutely incredible. It's always running at 60 frames a second, so it just feels so good. But the game design is largely unchanged, and so there was this sort of cool like testament to one of two things happening, and I'm still not really sure how I come down on this, but either this game got right a lot that long ago, like they got something right 11 years ago, and like the game has just been good the whole time. Or like myself and game players at large have just come to like appreciate this style of gameplay, right? It may be both. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. It was so much fun to like see how much has shifted as far as like taste goes in the last 11 years. It's really rare for games to become more fun over time.
Yeah.
It's almost always consistent that like a game just gets less fun as time goes on, because game design advances and gets different and like
keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, you kind of have to look back and be like, well, it was like this because of that, but Demon's Souls still fucking good. It's still very good.
Hell yeah.
So to back up a little bit, I played this on PS3 and bounced off of it so hard. I was like, no way. Like this game is punishing to the point that's like a throwback to like cabinet arcade games, where the point is just like to drain quarters from a person until they have no more money, right? And like it's intentionally punishing that way. And so I was like, no, like there's no way this is like a good game. But I'm sort of convinced that like the intent was to allow players to earn the satisfaction through mastery, right? And it's odd that they had such a clear and concise vision on that.
Yeah.
Because it's still something that, like, I wouldn't expect a lot of people to enjoy this game. You have to know that is sort of at the end of the tunnel. You have to know that, like, I'm going to get good enough at some point at this game that's going to be really satisfying. But it takes fucking forever. Like, it's not always an enjoyable process. And so...
No, it hurts. It's painful.
It hurts, yeah. And so, like, it's interesting to see, like, that game design sort of, like, come forth and be appreciated, because I was listening to the Experience Points podcast and they were talking about how when Demon Souls was 10 years ago or something like that, they were playing it and they were saying that like the servers were shutting down because like FromSoft was like, we don't have the money to like keep these like minimal servers online. And it wasn't really until like probably Dark Souls 2 that a bunch of people were like, oh, this is actually very good. And then, Bloodborne came out and Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro and all this sort of stuff where it's like, people finally sort of got on board, and now it's like one of the most successful like launch titles of the PlayStation. So it's, I don't know, it's a very weird and interesting arc, and I loved it playing through it. Like I said, I beat it, so I'm through with it.
Right.
And it's good shit. It's good shit.
Very cool.
Are we on your 5 or your 4?
My 4.
Okay. What's your number 4, David?
My number 4 is Divinity Original Sin 2.
Let's go. Okay.
Numero dos.
Yes. Does this, are you about to put number 1 higher?
Or did number 1 not even make my list?
Oh, interesting. Questionable. We'll see. Okay. Divinity Original Sin 2. Yeah, this is perhaps the least surprising inclusion on this list.
Yeah, this is the thickest thickie I've ever played in my life. My God, that was an experience. I've never really gotten into these type of, you call them isometric RPGs, right?
Yep.
But for some reason, this one is just so good. The story is so good. The combat is so good. The number of options you have in the world is so interesting and diverse, and everybody has a different like quest or storyline or dialogue tree that you can go down. It's just such a very realized, full world.
Yeah.
And it really does just feel like playing D&D with your friends, which is the real magic of it, I think, is that feeling that it creates, right? Just like a virtual version of D&D. With pretty much the same amount of freedom, you know? So, yeah, and it was a pleasure to play it with my partner.
Yeah, totally.
So just a really great time. Fun battles, good engaging story, great visuals, and it just kept giving. And really, at no point did the game seem to lag. It just kept going at a steady pace. Everything was interesting. Everything was engaging. It was really quite a special experience, I thought. It's really good.
Sweet. Yeah, it's. I wish I stuck in this fucking video game.
I was just, as I was gushing just there, I was like, I wonder what Chase is thinking right now, because he just has not gotten into this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much one of those things where you see people appreciating something and you're like, do I just not fucking get this?
Do you have it on PlayStation 4?
I have it on so many consoles.
I wonder if we can play it together.
I will need you to walk me through it, because I don't know if I'm just under leveled, but there's a specific fight when you're breaking out of the initial area, where I don't have my lock picking high enough to the point where I can just fucking leave, and so I have to fight these like guards who just kick my ass every time I try to get through there.
Sure.
So I've got no clue what I'm doing wrong, but
I'm sure there's a different way you can get through without having to do that fight.
I hope so, man.
I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
But we'll figure it out, baby. Don't worry.
Yeah, sure.
Don't worry. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Griftlands.
Griftlands,
all right. David. So it's, if you're a listener to the show with any sort of frequency, you will know that the running joke is that if there is a game that is titled a roguelike deck builder, then that will be my shit, regardless of the quality of the game.
Chase, roguelike deck builder Albie.
It's me. So maybe this is kind of a typical pick, but I genuinely think that this game is like actually cool and rules.
Yeah.
I wasn't really into these games until playing Slay the Spire a year or two ago, and I genuinely think that like that game has sort of influenced a lot of these other games who are doing it. But I think Griftlands does a lot of things that are really special. So you have like 2 decks in it that you sort of have to maintain, like a fighting deck and then like a verbal sort of jousting deck that you can convince people to do shit with. And the back and forth of having to like try and like specialize in one of those on any given run is really interesting, because usually you have some influence over whether or not you go into a situation fighting or trying to convince people to do something. And so you can kind of like, move your way around the game in that way. It's not always going to break like that. Sometimes you have to fight someone. And so you still need to kind of maintain your ability to defend yourself. But like, that back and forth, I think, is really interesting. And then much like another game on this list, it does a lot with narrative design. Like the narrative in a roguelike, I feel like usually is kind of in the back seat.
Sure.
Usually roguelikes are just an expression of mechanics, but this one allows you to walk into the same situation a bunch of times, but walk through a bunch of different paths, right? Oddly enough, I feel like Way of the Samurai did this back on like PlayStation 2, where you play a game and any given run lasts maybe an hour or two, but you're able to sort of like go through and like make really big decisions about who you're trying to ally with or who you want to betray and all this sort of stuff. And you can do that without much consequence, right? Because like if it sucks, if you don't like the decision, you just start over. And like that person doesn't give a shit who you are again. And so that like story roguelike mechanic is really interesting to me, and something that like Slay the Spire doesn't do, right? Like Slay the Spire is just fight a dude in the next room, fight a dude in the next room. And even like Monster Train, another roguelike deck builder, is mostly just mechanics, right? But this one I think does a lot of really cool special stuff with the story. So I like it, man. It's, like I said, a pretty typical pick for me, but I enjoyed it a lot.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So we're on your number 3.
Oh, my number 3. Okay. Control.
Control. Okay, cool.
Hey, I played Control this year. So good.
Yeah, the game is quite good.
It's a very good
video game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a very arresting game. It just gets you into it so fast and just hugs you with its creepiness and its weird vibe, right?
Yeah.
Whereas The Last of Us 2 is like a stranglehold, like it's choking you and like with intent to kill. This one's like that kind of creepy friend you have. It's just like kind of holding you. Just like
hangs on to that hug a little bit longer than you're expecting.
Exactly. So that's really good. That's really good. And I played all the DLC. The DLC was one of the few times where I'm just like, DLC was worth it.
Yeah.
I don't always feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, and just good gunplay. Probably the best implementation of telekinetic powers in a video game ever, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, like, what else even is there, right? Like, we've talked about PsyOps, haven't we?
Yeah.
I feel like it does so much cool stuff. Like, levitating feels so fucking cool.
Levitating feels so good. The telekinetics, like the blasts, feel great.
So much of that I feel like has to do with the sound design that they've done. The sound of like you pulling a piece of concrete next to you and it coming right up against your head. Like that, it's so satisfying.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I have a huge appreciation for Control. I love that like a game as weird as Control was made. Because it's like, for all intents and purposes, like a AAA video game. It looks incredible. Like, there were so many assets and so many resources that they put into that game.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. So I'm glad that it exists.
Unapologetically itself and kind of does its own thing and doesn't care about anybody else says. So it's good. It's a great game.
Can I do a huge shout out to whenever you enter a new area in Control?
Oh, the big white letters.
Sans serif font that just comes on the screen and takes up like the whole thing. Every time I'm like, that's so cool.
Good.
That's so cool.
There's something about that just feels so sci-fi.
Yeah, it doesn't break the gaplay, right? It's just like, hey, you've arrived here.
And there's like that low sound in the background, like the boom. Like you're somewhere new now.
I don't know. Yeah, I love that. Every time it happened, I was like, God damn, that's cool. It was great.
Okay, what's your number 3?
My number 3. It's Iconfell, David.
Iconfell. All right.
Iconfell. Another surprise for me this year. I was not tracking the development or the release of this game. I essentially just saw it in the eShop and I'm like, well, that looks kind of cool. I'm gonna see what this game is about.
Yeah.
At the time, so I'm usually lurking in the Switch eShop. Like every Friday or so, I'll be like, what's going on here? Anything fucking cool? And this one just showed up and like there wasn't a lot of reviews out for it yet. I'm assuming like because it's an indie dev, they didn't necessarily send it to like developers months in advance or whatever. So I sort of like took not a risk, but I was like, well, I'll see what this game is about. So fucking good. I was so surprised by this game. I talked about it a little bit on the show, but yeah, it's the style is just so neat. The game, like when you're just kind of wandering around the main world, looks like, Earthbound or fucking Undertale or something. Like it's fairly simplistic. The battle system is fucking great. It scratches that Mega Man Bargle Network fucking itch that I always seem to have.
A perpetual itch.
Perpetual. Always itchy. Yeah, they like kept it interesting by introducing new characters who all had like distinct abilities and stuff like that. And the mechanics just never really outstayed their welcome. So I love that. But I think more so to the point, like why it is so high on my list, I think like something like Celeste, it backs up these really good mechanics with like a story about people and how they deal with their anxieties and then how that sort of like loops back into the gameplay.
Celeste is so good.
Celeste is so fucking good.
Damn.
And it was like a oddly optimistic take in sort of, throughout the game. It's a lot of stories and, characters who start the story very distant and like disconnected and through sort of your main character and all these people coming together, they work through it and get through to different, heights and stuff like that. I really appreciated that. For the most part, there wasn't like a necessarily big bad guy. There was like somebody who was making poor decisions that needed to sort of like see a change in perspective and was essentially just being too hard on themselves, right? They were the like main, bad person in this one. They had essentially just been like put through so much shit that they were like trying to protect themselves. Nice. And I like that that's the story they told, rather than like this person is just genuinely
we must destroy them.
Yeah, it was like we need to convince them that there's another way to do this. And so I think sort of on one end, or on one side of a coin is The Last of Us 2, and the other side of the coin is Eichenfeld, where it's like it is a deeply hopeful and optimistic vision that's expressed through fucking wizards and wizard school. So cool. I thought that was I love this game.
Cool.
That's very good.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see, where are we at?
2.
Wow, 2. I feel like we're moving through it, David.
We're rolling.
Yeah, we're live.
Are you ready?
Tell me your number 2, David.
My number 2 is Nier Automata.
Nier fucking Automata. Wow. Wow.
That's a good game, man. That's a good game.
This is shocking to me. This is surprising.
Really? Why?
I knew that you liked this game, but not this much.
Yeah, this game's real good.
I see game critics around the internet, and there's like one on every website who's like, yo, Nier Automata is like the best fucking video game of all time. You just gotta play it. You gotta get in there.
Dude, it's so good. I had such low, I guess,
expectations.
I expected something from it, but I didn't expect this much. And I also just don't, in general, expect too much from kind of general hack and slash games anymore. After playing like a Sekiro, I'm just like, this is the future of third-person action games. No, hack and slash can still be good. It can still be good. And this game proves that. It's hard for me to pinpoint what exactly is satisfying about the hack and slash in this, whether or not it's because you get a little robot friend who does long range attacks for you, whether it's like the funky controls that just make you interact with the game and the controller differently, whether it's the diverse different weapons you can get that all just kind of do different cool things. They don't really like do too much differently, but they just look cool. Each one does like cool attacks. It just has so much style, and it really goes.
It's got a vibe, David.
It's got a vibe, and it goes so far with being just like a cool style and vibe and world and experience, along with just satisfying, tight controls and action, and just a weird ass traditional Japanese game story from my childhood where it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I was an android and now we're talking about like contemplating the essence of humanity and souls. Like, how did we get here? But that's
some good shit.
But it does it, and it makes you care about these stupid little androids too, which is impressive. So it's just a very unique experience. I've never played a game like it. And I don't know if I ever will again, because the guy who makes this game seems to just do something completely different every time. So it was just, it was just a great marriage of a kind of auteur type of game, game like a designer, and like just a really great action RPG studio. It's the same guys who made like Bayonetta and everything like that.
Right, yeah.
So it's just like super tight controls, but just a blast to play. And you can get it for real cheap wherever you go.
I was just about to say, I may have to get up at this. Again, I feel like it's a very heightened and like next level opinion to think that this game is very good. So, like, I gotta get up in there.
I gotta be cool.
I know, just that, like, I think, or if it's a, how do I put this?
The Thinking Weebs video game.
It's the Thinking Weebs video.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy
to
it.
You.
Okay, I won't buy
to
it.
You.
I won't. Wait, is it coming on disc? Because I may have a problem with that.
You may have a problem with that?
Boy, I threw my PlayStation 4 right in the dumpster.
You threw it in the dumpy?
No.
You threw it in the dumpy?
I'll play it on
you monster.
That's
I mean,
fine.
do what you do. I could just also gift it to you over the shop or whatever.
Sure. Let me consider my options.
Yeah, consider your options, boy.
Yeah. Well, cool. Great pick. I like that one.
That's a good one. What's your number 2?
My number 2, David. It's Hades.
I was wondering when this one's going to be up there.
I struggled with my number 1 and number 2. These two went back and forth. I really, really like Hades. This is a very good video game. So Hades on the surface looks a lot like other roguelikes, and it's a game where you're fighting through some horde of dudes and you die and you go back to the beginning from the very beginning and you start over. But there's so much more to appreciate here. Anybody who's played this game or read about this game is going to know what I'm talking about, but the narrative design is so fresh and like pushes the boundary of like how games can track player interactions and player relationships among this like gigantic cast of characters. And I think because it forces you to sort of like go back to this main hub all the time, essentially when you go back, it's tracking your, not progress, but how far along you've gotten with each of these characters. And so you could neglect someone and just not talk to them very much, and your relationship is mostly still at the same spot. And you could just like be like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, like Achilles is my boy. I need to go talk to him every time I come down here. And your sort of relationship and your dialogue with that person progresses and their story progresses, and you get to learn more about them and stuff like that. But if that's the only person you care about, that's the only person who you're going to keep learning about. And so, you come down and rarely do you hear any like line repeated, right? Like it's just constantly doing something new. And so it's really interesting to sort of like go explore these characters in really your own pace, right? Like they're not forcing you to go talk to anybody. It's really just about like who you're interested in and what you want to hear about. It helps that all the characters are A, pretty interesting, and B, so hot. So you always want to go talk to these people. Their voice actors are all like, they sound like they're from like Riverdale or something like that. So it's all very dramatic and low. Yeah. And everybody's talking very sultry. And so it's great. Not to mention the fucking gameplay of this game, man. It's so good. It's got sort of a dodge roll, right? You got a dash in there. But the moment to moment gameplay is just so cool. So normally what happens with roguelikes is that you have to introduce something that's going to keep each run being a little bit different from, one from the other, right? In Rogue Legacy, you've got a bunch of different weapons. In Dead Cells, you've got also a bunch of different weapons. And maybe you could take a different path through these different places and all this. But for whatever reason, Hades just hit the mark for me with, they have about 6 different weapons that you can choose from the beginning. All of them feel incredibly distinct and all play really, really differently. And then you also have these like sort of sub modifiers that you can pull in through the rest of the game, whether or not that's affecting your actual weapon, right? Like it turns your gun that you can get, there's like a gun in the game, from just like a long range shot into like a shotgun blast or something, and then you can combine that with a bunch of other effects to sort of change up how you're playing it. And they also have these like boons, which are gonna you can do damage over time if you dash at a certain point, or the little casting modifier that you have will change your shot from just this regular little dart into like a lightning bolt or something. And then you can stack effects based on that. And so every run ends up feeling incredibly distinct. And in no other roguelike do I ever feel as empowered walking into any situation. I'm always like, oh, it's over for you guys. I got the good shit now. You guys are fucked.
Oh yeah.
And so it's incredibly satisfying to play it. What else? I feel like there's just so much. Yeah, it's very good. I think the highest praise I can pay for this game is that I mostly like beat the game. Like I sort of got to the logical conclusion of the story, and I wasn't necessarily interested in like figuring out all the side stories and talking to all these people, but I just kept playing like habitually. I was like, all right, I gotta go get another run in real quick, because it's just so fun to play. Every time you play it, it's good, and every time you die, it's not like, oh shit, I gotta start over. It's like, well, I have this much currency to go back and spend now, so I can do a bunch of other cool shit. So it's so good. I love this game. I was also surprised because I played it in early access like a year ago, and it was just so different. It's like you could tell what they were going for, but it wasn't fully realized until they put it out. And so it was really interesting to see the sort of back and forth there.
How they kind of refined it through the process.
Yeah, because it, if they'd put it out in the state that it was a year ago, I'd be like, damn, really good game, really fun. But it wasn't until they sort of started pushing these other boundaries that I'm like, damn, that is a phenomenal game. And one that I will probably continue to play for a while.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah, fuck yeah, Hades.
Oh yeah.
Are we on our number ones?
We are. I think we should do our honorable mentions real quick.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's do our honorable mentions. I got a ton.
I got a few as well.
Okay. You want to run through a few of yours?
Yeah. I'm going to say Zelda Link's Awakening.
Sure. Yeah, good game.
Good game. Awesome visual style. Very fun. Cities Skylines for being my version of crack cocaine.
Get you up in there.
Really gets me going. Yeah. Divinity Original Sin 1.
Okay. Yep.
Very good. Not as good as the second one, in my opinion.
Sure.
But still a quality game in its own right.
Yep.
Star Wars Squaw.
Yep.
Star Wars Squaw. very fun, just blast to be in space. Overwatch, the gift that keeps on giving.
Sure is.
And a huge honorable mention to The Witcher 3, which would have been probably like in my top 1 or 2 on this list if it hadn't been a game that I've been playing over the course of 3 years and just now really started to get into. It's just felt weird
the
being
timing
like,
of this
is my favorite
rough.
game of the year. No, I can't say that when I bought this in like 2017. It doesn't feel right, but fantastic game once you get into it.
Yep.
All right, what are your honorable mentions?
I got a few. The first one is Fatum Batula. It was like that indie horror game that I played that looked like a PlayStation 1 game. Mm-hmm. I can't even say I played a ton of this. I played like an hour or two, and I got like a couple of the endings, but it stuck with me. I think about this game a lot. Mm-hmm. It was just so weird and like dreamlike that, I don't know, it scratches an itch that I'm susceptible to pretty frequently. The same thing with Paratopic. It's also it's a very similar sort of very, not isometric, but polygonal horror game.
Sure.
Looks like a PlayStation 1 game. Mm-hmm. Also terrifying. Also can beat it in an hour or two. I love little compact experiences like that where the game designer has something sort of horrifying to present to you and doesn't really skip around with that. Like I think I said this when we played or when I was talking about this game, but you can be pretty horrifying in an hour or two. It's harder to be scary for 20 hours because at some point the player realizes sort of what your tricks are. Mm-hmm. But if you're only playing it for an hour, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's really good. Another honorable mention is Ooblets.
Ooblets.
I fucking like Ooblets, man. This game is good. I'd like talk to a few people about this game online, and some of them were like, oh, it wasn't much of a game, or like they're sort of harping on it for not being like fully realized. And I think that's probably true. Like the depth of it isn't quite there yet because it's still in early access, but I still had a great fucking time. It's so like chipper and cute and enjoyable. Like I just like to go exist in that town. So I liked Ooblets a lot.
Cool.
Prey didn't come out this year. Didn't even come out close to this year. I tried to keep it just to that one, but I fucking loved Prey.
Yeah.
It was a very, very good game. It's on my honorable mention list every year. Slay the Spire. I've played an unconscionable amount of hours on the fucking video game. The Nintendo Switch tracks how many hours you've put into its games, and it is a bummer how many hours I've put into.
How much is it?
I think it's creeping up to like 300 or 400 hours, David.
I have to say, I think the last I checked on your profile was like 250.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I play it every day. I play it before bed for at least a half an hour, and whenever I'd ride the bus to work, this would be my going to and coming from.
There you go.
Put some hours into this video game.
Perfect.
Fucking Dota. I like Dota. I played a lot of Dota this year.
Okay, yeah.
Also, Moonlighter. I played Moonlighter this year, and I think that wasn't a release that came out in 2020, but I really enjoyed it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. That almost made it on this list, but it didn't. Everything you said, I agree with.
Cool story, bro.
And then Final Fantasy VII Remake also didn't make it on my list, but I think that's mostly because I haven't beaten it yet, and I kind of want to see it to its logical conclusion before I come down one way or the other.
Sure, gotcha.
And those are my honorable mentions, David.
Beautiful.
Let's get to this. Let's put our cards on the table.
All right, here we go.
What's your number one game, David?
My number one game
of 2020.
2020 that I played in 2020.
Yes.
Is Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, it's pretty undeniable.
Feels like a cop-out, but man, is that game so good. And was it just the most wonderful experience in this dark, dark year.
Joyous. Was it the first time you had played it?
I hadn't played it before.
Okay, yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
It's such a joy, that
game. No,
game.
it's so good. Probably some of the best just pure platforming maybe ever done in games, to be honest.
It's not unfair.
No.
I don't have a better example to show you.
That's at least arguable. That's at least arguable.
Yeah.
Just the number of moons there are, just how every single thing that on the map that looks like you could interact with it or do something interesting there's a moon you can get by doing some sort of something there.
Yeah.
It rewards you so much for exploration, but doesn't punish you for trying things, right? It's not like old Mario games where once you run out of lives, you're just shit out of luck. You're just back. You're back. You just try more stuff. So I really appreciate that it's not trying to make you get good by punishing you. It's making you get good by fueling your desire for exploration. because it does put certain things behind skills to get up there, like technical skills to get up there with the platforming and everything.
Yeah.
So you can get through the whole game just normally, but if you want to explore like what's all the way up, like at the top of this like ice peak, you gotta figure out how to get up there. And it's just it's kind of like the nice version of like a FromSoft game, right? It's very technically demanding if once you get to the top levels of it, but it doesn't make you. It lets the player decide that they want to get there, which I appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just great sound design, great music, great levels. Every level is very memorable. Like that song, that jazz song is stuck in my head.
An absolute fucking bop. Yeah.
I think I probably hum that song like maybe every week. Still. Oh, so good. So good. My God. Yeah, it's hard for me to think about any criticisms of the game, really.
I've got almost nothing. Like, the game is so fucking good.
Like nothing really comes to mind when I can think of criticisms.
Nothing substantial. Game. I'd have to pick at the edges to be like, well, it doesn't look perfect at this one spot. Everything else is like, every level is enjoyable. Every song sounds good. Every level looks good. Every moon is always like, oh fuck yeah, hell yeah, I got that one. It doesn't repeat itself. At no point you're like, wow, this is boring or whatever. Like, never. It's always good from start to finish.
And it actually makes me want to like get the collectibles because I want to get all like the weird costumes or what are they, souvenirs like from all the different worlds, and get them in my hat ship and take them with me. And then there's just that last level where it takes you back to the olden days, if you know what I mean, without spoiling anything.
Ooh, good lord, so satisfying.
Goodness gracious, that was a pleasure,
a real treat.
It was a real treat. So that's my number one for this year.
I feel like the thesis of a lot of video games is usually accomplishment. It's usually, here's the challenge, do it. I feel like Nintendo has hit on something in the last couple of years that is sort of new, which is rather than the thesis being accomplishment, it is discovery. You see this with Breath of the Wild and Odyssey, where it's like, it's not necessarily a hard game. I'm not satisfied in those games because it was difficult. I'm satisfied because they encouraged me to just go fucking wander and explore this really cool world. And there was something behind a rock that I was like, I bet there's something behind that rock.
You were right.
And I was right. That's the satisfying part of these games, is like, I like to go wander out into whatever cool environment they have provided and figure out what's out there, because sometimes it's really fucking cool and fun and it's inventive and exciting.
It's real good.
It's real good. Every level in that game. I'm trying to think of all of them, and every one of them, like, yeah, that was good. That was good. That was also good.
Yeah, they were all good in their own ways. Even the water level was good, which is impressive.
So hard to do.
Yeah.
I think allowing you to be a fish is a big part of why that level was good.
You can even be a fish.
You can be a fish and not have to struggle through swimming. It just lets you kind of get through that water real quick.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, goddamn. Odyssey.
Great one.
Odyssey, yes, see.
Odyssey, yes, see.
Yes, see.
So good. All right, what's your number one?
My number one of 2020, David, is Animal Crossing.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I went back and forth on this one. I think Hades is a better game than Animal Crossing is. But Animal Crossing is so inseparable from this year that it is hard to imagine a more like concise idea of what 2020, like how I'm going to remember this year than this video game.
Sure.
This year was just an absolute fucking shit show. And I am not unhappy that it is almost a new year and potentially will bring a different year than what this year is.
Yeah.
And it's so like poetic that this game came out almost like a week or two after we all sort of started quarantining. It came out in March. So like the very beginning of when everybody was like stuck inside their houses. And it was like almost tailor-made for this time, right? Like this very easy, optimistic, bright, shiny video game where you can just sort of go outside and hang out with people that are really nice to you. Like I can't imagine a better game for these times. And so, yeah, it's certainly incredible. I think specifically to sharing the island with Em was just such a fucking huge treat because like her and I don't always play video games together. And so it was sort of a joy just to be able to like be like, oh yeah, hell yeah, we're playing video games. All right. Leaving each other presents was like a lovely way to sort of like give gifts to each other because we can only really play one at a time. Right. And so, you know, I'll play in the afternoon and I'll leave her some sort of present outside of her house and she'll go on later and I'm just sort of waiting to see if she notices it and then be like, oh, hell yeah, look at this cool purse that someone left next to my house.
Waiting in real life.
Exactly. Yeah, no, just sort of like
just
lurking
in
the corner.
The next room, just peeking behind the door.
Did you see it?
Did you see the purse I left you?
Do you see the card I sent you? So that was great. Going on like island dates was surprisingly fun. Like you can do 2-player on one console and you can like go to the aquarium and hang out and shit like that.
Nice.
Cheesy as hell, but it was really nice. Yeah, so it was like this cool way to connect with my partner because we can't do the shit that we normally do in this year. We can't go out to restaurants. We can't go to a real aquarium. We can't, go out and get something for each other and leave it at the house or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was this strange sort of expression of what the real world is like, but just with this very cute animal coat of paint. And this is all sort of outside of the internet being collectively obsessed with this game for the better part of spring. Seeing everyone's like creativity flourish in this video game while being stuck in a time and place where like creativity can be so hard to produce. And like, this, I don't know, the quarantine I know is just like crushing to some people's creative bones. And so it was inspiring to see people like, hey, I recreated this kind of island on my island, or I put in a lot of work and this is what it looks like now. And it's very interesting. So sort of, summing this up, I don't think I'm going to look back on 2020 with a whole lot of joy or nostalgia, but I do think the experience of playing Animal Crossing will be this sort of like bittersweet memory that's like so deeply 2020.
Sure.
And so I had to put it at number one. It's like, do you remember when Pokemon Go came out? Do you remember that summer specifically? It was wild. Everybody was playing that game.
People were going.
It was like this sort of cultural touchstone where like, I remember walking to like a Borders Books and like some mom was playing Pokemon Go and both of us were like, oh, it's a Charmander in there. And she's like, yeah, you got to go get that.
You got to get that
like people who, I would never talk to these people, but like you're just striking up a conversation about fucking Pokemon. It feels like a similar sort of concept where
totally
I'm interacting with people more about Animal Crossing, talking to people who I don't usually talk to about video games, about Animal Crossing, seeing it all over the internet. So it was this weird experience of the cultural zeitgeist sort of coming around on Animal Crossing all at once. And it's still an incredibly fun game, but it's a wildly 2020 video game.
Totally. Look at the two of us.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Naming good video games in 2020.
Just two feel-good Nintendo games at the top.
Fuck, yeah, I guess that's true, huh?
It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year.
Yeah, 2 games that make this year a little less painful to experience at any given moment.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, good list.
Yeah.
I like those games.
See you too. Nicely done. Nicely listed.
Like the cut of your jib.
I like the cut of your indies.
Hell yeah. So yeah, next week I figure we'll probably do our goofs, our least and most podtimistic things of the year.
It's the Nasty Boy cast next week.
I hope it's not necessarily nasty, but there may be a little bit more nasty than this one.
Chase Nastaman and David Nastaman will be coming out.
Hold on. Chase Allnast, David Benanasty.
Benanasty? Benanasty. My God. I don't know. Chase Allnast is good, but what about Chase Nastby?
Chase Nastby is, it's a pretty distinguished and elevated sort of boy.
Too elevated. Allnast.
Allnast.
It's like All Might.
No. I'm going plus nasty.
I'm going plus nasty. I'm Chase Allnast. No, you're right. Allnast is way better.
This is the power of Allnast.
Allnast.
Okay, well, we're on Twitter, David.
Sure are.
If you want to go interact with us there, tell us about all of our wrongest picks, and we'll respectfully disagree.
Yep.
If you want to support the show, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way to get the word out. We don't really do ads, so we're not supported by any sort of income in the show, but the best way we can support our shows to just tell other people. A great way to do that, like I said, through Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we are open to advertisements.
We are, but I really just wanted to be at Alberto's. I just want to be doing at Alberto's ads, David.
You want to do ad Alberto's?
I want to do ad Alberto's. It's still just at Alberto's.
I know.
There probably needs to be an apostrophe or a dash in there somewhere.
Yeah. Ads Alberto's.
Ads Alberto's. Yeah, if somebody can find the marketing department for Ad Alberto's, we need to connect.
They don't got marketing.
Yeah.
They don't got marketing.
Yeah, I know.
They maybe have a social media team, and they may send us week-old California burritos as our payment because they're sending them from SAC. But
yeah, unfortunately enough, I will take this form of payment. So yeah, I think that's it.
Nice.
Hope you have enjoyed our game of the year. It's been I know we're not quite done with the year yet, but it's been a really fun year doing this pod. It's our first one, in fact.
Our first year, our first podcast.
This is our first podcast, right?
Baby's first podcast.
You gotta, yep. There's plenty of jokes, but my brain is broken from doing all these games. It's been a true joy to sort of like hear people interact with this, and I quite revel in the idea of being able to provide some amount of relief in a year that was otherwise pretty difficult.
Same. Yeah, it's been awesome to do this and to have people actually listen, which is the craziest part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great, and I will probably we'll do some sort of other thank you round, but next week. But yeah, approaching the end of the year here, and it's been great. It's been a joy. David, do you have any gaming wisdom?
My party words of wisdom is that if there are a bunch of bears that kill a bunch of people in your banquet hall, chances are it's the recently widowed queen because she's doing a power grab.
Yeah.
So that's your video game wisdom for the week.
So it's just the identification of what kind of bear attack you're dealing with.
People be scheming is
people be scheming. That is true. What is someone supposed to do in this sort of bear attack situation? If and only if you are being attacked by a recently widowed queen bear.
So it's not a queen bear. The bears have been released by the recently widowed queen.
Yes, absolutely.
First step is not get killed.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Second step is to gather evidence.
Uh-huh.
Third step is to gather the Jarls. Fourth step is to present said evidence. Fifth step is to defend your evidence against said widowed queen who is poking holes in your story and trying to get you killed. And step six. The sixth step is to have her son turn against her.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
And the seventh step is profit.
Seventh step, question mark. Eighth step, profit. Yeah, I think, really, David, it's any problem that you run into, I think gathering the Jarls is always a good idea.
Here I go, gathering the Jarls again.
Well, I was laid off from my job, and I'm not really sure what my next move is.
Gotta gather the Jarls. The next time, can we stop calling our bros and just start calling them Jarls?
Jarls. Oh, man.
We call them the banners tonight, baby. Oh, my God.
Okay. That's good. That's enough.
This is our Jarl shout-out of the week.